I had been suffering from a cough for several months. I'd had chest infections in the past. I'd had coughs in the past. When I was very young, I used to get bronchitis. So coughs for me wasn't an unusual thing to have. It wasn't unusual for a cough for me to develop into something more like a chest infection. Occasionally I'd had pneumonia, but this one was different. It wasn't going away. It just left me tired. It left me quite lethargic, which, yes, when I'd had coughs before, they obviously knock you for six a little bit, but this one took the wind out of me more than I was expecting. So I continued to go back to see the GP after a course of antibiotics to get a new diagnosis. It did feel quite, it felt strange going back to the doctor for essentially a second opinion on something I'd already seen them for. I'd been told it was a chest infection. I'd been told take antibiotics and give it a few weeks, it'll clear up. It felt a little bit almost cheeky going back to the GP to say, I don't think this is right. I don't think this is what you've said it is. I think it's worse than that. I was possibly a little hesitant initially to push it further and say, listen, this just is something serious. This is something different. But over the course of several rounds of antibiotics, I think it became clear to everybody that something needed to be done to find out what was wrong. It wasn't until the end of that appointment when I sat down with the consultant who'd done the test, and he said, we found a tumor. 10 years later, it still makes me go. I was very fortunate. The type of cancer I had was treatable with surgery. They told me that when I went for the bronchoscopy. They were 90% sure what it was, they were 90% sure where it was, and they were 90% sure how to treat it. And it would be surgery. The surgery I had 10 years ago would almost certainly now be keyhole surgery, rather than, at the time, a week in hospital to recover from invasive chest surgery. The thought that people now would be facing what I faced, but with keyhole surgery, an easier recovery, less invasive, less daunting, I think that's fantastic. We all know how we feel. We all know what's normal for us, and we all know whether something's changed. And I think what I would say to people is, if you don't feel right, there's no embarrassment or shame in going to the GP and saying, I don't feel right. It sits in the back of your mind until you get it looked at. It's not going to go away. So go and see the people who can actually tell you what it is. That's what they're there for. They don't mind doing it. And it's the easiest way to get the answer to the question that you have and you're ignoring.